Thank you for joining today's session. We will be getting started shortly. We do have a lot of folks signed up for today's session, and we want to give everyone a moment to log on and get connected so that we can dive into today's session. I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I am Jasmine Garrett here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's session is an informational overview of the NJ Pool program, where the team will review program requirements and highlight the recent expansion of the program's geographic eligibility. A quick housekeeping note, we do suspect that many questions will be answered in today's presentation. However, you are able to write in questions at any point during the presentation using Zoom's Q&A feature. It is one of your Zoom command options and will allow us to make sure we are able to get back to you and let others see these questions and answers as well. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted on our NJEDA and YouTube pages. The slides and other resources will also be available in the next few days. Now, to get us started with the presentation, I will shift things over to NJEDA's Manager of Clean Energy, Sean Sonneman. Sean?
Great. Thank you, Jasmine. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate all of your interest in the NJ Cool program. For those of you who have been following the program over the last year or so, we're very excited to announce this expansion of eligibility beyond our three original pilot communities of Newark, Edison, and Atlantic City. For those of us who are new to the program, we're definitely going to go through everything you need to know to understand the program requirements, the application process, and understand how you can access this funding to, as shown in the slide here, help reduce the operating greenhouse gas emissions from existing buildings in the state. Next slide. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with the NJEDA, just a reminder here about who we are and what our mission is in the state. We are the state's principal agency for driving economic growth. That's job creation and promoting key sectors of opportunity in the state for economic advancement. One of which, under the Governor Murphy administration, is clean energy broadly in the state. And we really see that there's not only the environmental benefits of promoting clean energy businesses and activities and projects in the state, but of course, economic opportunity, job creation, and economic development that broadly comes with that. We're very excited to go over the NJ Cool program today, as we really feel it marries both of these missions of the EDA and the clean energy team here. I'm really excited for the team to present today, so I'm going to turn the floor over to them to walk through the program details. And afterwards, as Jasmine said, we'll go through any additional question and answers in the chat that haven't already been answered through the presentation content. Cassie?
Thanks, Sean. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining today. My name is Cassie Havens with the NJ Cool team. This is our agenda for this meeting. We're going to go over a brief overview of what NJ Cool is and then go through all the eligibility criteria. Then I will turn the floor to our other NJ Cool team member, Lloyd, to go over all the documents that you need when you apply and then the program timeline. And as Sean said, we will end with the live Q&A. So to start, we want to go over the program funding. This is a $15 million grant program funded by the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and it reimburses applicants at a 50% rate for all eligible hard construction costs. This includes labor, equipment, and materials for any retrofit projects in existing commercial, industrial, or institutional buildings. The award amount can range from $50,000 up to $1 million. We've already seen over $3 million of our original $15 million allocated as of the beginning of this year. And we have an additional $15 million available in reserved funds that we still have yet to use. So to be eligible for NJ Cool, you have to be doing one of these two things. The first is fuel switching. You have to switch at least 75% of building space heating load from fossil fuel-based combustion system to non-combustion-based systems. For those of us who aren't in the HVAC field, this could mean anything from switching your natural gas heating system to a heat pump and anything equivalent like that. Then you either have to do, you can do the other track, which is refrigerant replacement, which means you have to be replacing at least 75% of your existing building high global warming potential refrigerants with lower GWP alternatives. Newer HVAC systems being rolled out today are using lower GWP refrigerants for cooling already. These systems are more eco-friendly and they help promote cleaner air. So once you do
Cassie,
one,
sorry, I think the slides might be a little stuck.
Yeah.
If you want to just tab maybe one more time or tab back and forth. Nope. Yep, there you go.
oh, so are you saying the correct?
It looks like there's like a page, maybe you clicked over twice. Okay, that looks fine. Try using your keyboard to navigate through the slide.
Okay, got it. Are you guys seeing the fuel switching and refrigerant replacement slide?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry for the technical difficulties. As I was saying, to be eligible for NJ Cool, you have to do one of these two things. So you can either do fuel switching or refrigerant replacement. Your project can include doing both, but it has to do at least one of these. Once your project has one of these in the scope, then you can do a number of different things. So anything else that helps improve your building's energy efficiency is covered under NJ Cool. This could include adding LED light bulbs, solar panels on the roof, upgrading your building's envelope, adding electric kitchen equipment. Really, there's a wide range of things. As long as you can prove that it helps improve your building's energy efficiency, we can cover it under NJ Cool. So for program benefits, the whole reason that we created this program is to help eligible building owners and tenants with the initial cost of these electrification. We do recognize that this technology can be a bit more expensive than the traditional combustion equivalent. So we did want to help bridge that gap in cost. Not only that, but it does help reduce the building's operating greenhouse gas emissions, and it helps improve indoor air quality. It can also help reduce your building's energy costs monthly. You can accelerate the adoption of building decarbonization systems, technology, and construction practices within New Jersey through this program. It's also stackable with many state utility and BPU clean energy program incentives. If you are stacking with other incentives, NJ Cool will subtract out other incentives from the eligible project cost. For example, if your project has $1 million of eligible costs and is also receiving $200,000 from PSENG's direct install program, then the eligible cost for the NJ Cool would be $800,000, and the award amount would be half of that. So for the award for NJ Cool would be $400,000. While NJ Cool does not have a matching finance piece, the NJEDA does have a program called NJ Clean Energy Loans, also known as NJ Cells, which can offer financing for NJ Cool projects. There's also the NJ Green Bank. They have some financing options for bigger projects. If either of these financing options are of interest to you, you can learn more about them on our clean energy website by visiting NJEDA's website. So things that NJ Cool can cover, the eligible costs, are any material, labors, and or equipment that are directly related to the emissions reductions or energy efficiency improvements, and any enabling work for those improvements. So for example, if you're adding solar panels to your building and you need to do some roof work so your roof can hold those solar panels, NJ Cool would cover those costs. Ineligible project costs include any new construction, and this includes any enlargements or additions to existing buildings, new fossil fuel-based systems, prior energy efficiency or emission reductions improvements that began or completed before the time of application approval, any other building system upgrades that are not related to operating energy or emissions, soft costs such as energy audits, design professional services, third-party construction management costs, permitting fees, commissioning costs, inspection fees, and any facility or site acquisition. Eligible applicants include the building owner or the tenant if you have owner approval. We only accept retrofits of existing buildings. We do not accept any new construction or enlargements or additions to existing buildings. The building must be located within a census block that is an NJ designated overburden community or adjacent community. This is part of the expansion, and we'll be going over that in the next few slides. Additionally, if you are part of the original eligible geography of Newark, Edison, and Atlantic City, you are still eligible even if you are not in an OBC. All construction work must be completed by a public works contractor who is registered with NJDOL, complying with state prevailing wage and affirmative action requirements. And your building must be commercial, industrial, or institutional as defined by the NJ Building Code occupancy class or property classes. So eligible property classes, this is all the ones that we accept. We accept class 4A, 4B, and then all the class 15s. I will say if you are a religiously affiliated entity, you will have to fill out an additional questionnaire, and that is subject to the New Jersey Attorney General review. This information can be found on your tax bill, or you can check your building's property class on your county's online tax data hub. You can also confirm your building through occupancy class, so you can either use the property class or occupancy class. We accept Mercantile Group M, Assembly Group A2, and Business Group B. This information can be found on your building certificate of occupancy, and this document would probably be most relevant for any tenants that are applying through the program. So to highlight our recent geography expansion, we wanted to go over how to use the overburden and adjacent community mapping tool that the NJDEP provides. First, we want to let everyone know what an overburden community is. This is a term that was defined by New Jersey's 2020 Environmental Justice Law, and it's a focus priority of NJCOOL's funding source, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So to use, to figure out if your building is in an OBC or formally designated adjacent community, there's a simple tool that you can use. We have that on our NJCOOL website. It will take you to the Department of Environmental Protection's online mapping tool. And from there, you can use the little search icon to put your building's address in. And if you are in a shaded blue or yellow area, then you are within an eligible community. So for example, these are OBC. This is an example of an OBC. If you were to type in One Gateway Center in Newark, you would see that it's in a blue shaded area. But if you were to type in this address in Hoboken, you would see that even though it is right next to a blue area, it is not within a blue area. So therefore, it is not an OBC. The same can be said for the formerly adjacent communities. This building in Trenton is located in a yellow shaded area. Therefore, it's in an adjacent community. This building in Warren is not in an adjacent community, even though it is right across the street from that yellow shaded area. It is unfortunately not eligible for NJCOOL, as it is not in an adjacent community. I'm going to hand the floor over to our other NJCOOL team member, Lloyd, to go over all the documents that you need for applying to the program.
Great, thank you, Cassie. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks again for joining the webinar. My name is Lloyd Lomolino. I'm a product officer with the Clean Energy team, and I will be reviewing the NJCOOL application process. To apply to NJCOOL, you must first go to the program website at njeda.org/NJCOOL. Once you get to that website, you will see two selections in the upper right-hand side. The first is a pre-application form, which is optional, and the second is the application form itself. You can submit the pre-application form to check your project eligibility before submitting your full application. And the form is not required, but it would allow us to review your project for eligibility before you go ahead and submit that application. It's important to note because there is a $1,000 non-refundable application fee for submitting your full application. So we would prefer that, or we encourage that you submit the pre-application form to ask any questions to us prior to that submission. But once you complete that, you will go ahead and click the apply now button, apply here, excuse me. You can click login on that and we'll register a new account, or you can log into your existing account and then navigate to the NJCOOL application. from the NJEDA program page. It's important to note that applications can be started and saved, and you can return back to your application at any time to submit. And to do that, you would click My Applications on the upper ribbon. Also, consultants and contractors can submit applications on behalf of a grantee or an applicant. So this would be an owner or the tenant. Next slide, please. As part of your application, you will submit a list of required documentation. This includes proof of who you are as an applicant through your organization formation documents. This includes articles of incorporation, articles of organization, or your certificate of incorporation. You'll have to provide proof of property ownership if you are the owner. This can be done through the deed, the mortgage statement, or a property tax. Or if you are a tenant of a building and applying, you need to show proof of your lease, as well as complete an additional form, which is the landlord certificate form. This can be found on our applications materials section of the website, and that's highlighted in the lower right-hand side on this slide as well. That form will essentially authorize and certify that the building owner approves of the project. They will sign off on the form as well as the tenant. You will also be required to show proof of your building occupancy class or property class to confirm eligibility. This can be done through an existing building permit, a certificate of occupancy, or your property tax record. You must submit a full detailed scope of project as well as a cost estimate from a public works registered contractor through the New Jersey Department of Labor, and also include any equipment or materials procured directly by the applicant for the scope of the project. And we will discuss the public works registered contractor in the next slide in more detail. And you'll also have to submit a valid tax clearance certificate at time of application approval. Next slide, please. As part of the application, you will also submit an emissions and energy summary form. And this form is used to collect the estimates of the emissions and energy reductions based on the scope of your project in the building. We have also developed an SOP, which is available as part of the application materials that will walk you through what this document is. And we've also developed an emissions energy calculator, which can be filled out by your qualified professional who is required to submit these documents to us. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the qualified professional must submit the emissions and energy summary form. This can be done by a licensed engineer, a licensed architect, a certified energy auditor, a certified energy manager, an energy management professional. And on the right-hand side, there will be a section on the form where the qualified professional will type in their name, sign off, and as well as list their credential number. Next slide, please. All contractors working on NJCool projects must be certified public works contractors through the New Jersey Department of Labor. And this requirement is not specific to NJCool, but rather any project that receives state funding. There are over 5,000 registered public works contractors available in New Jersey, and a full list of these contractors is available on the New Jersey Department of Labor's website. We've already done a little bit of work to help facilitate in this process, and we've developed a list of public works contractors that have expressed interest in working with NJCool projects. This information can be found highlighted in the lower right-hand side of the slide as a PDF that's down, as an Excel spreadsheet that's downloadable. Any contractor that is working on NJCool project must agree to pay prevailing wage, which are set by county and by a specific construction trade. And contractors with 4 or more total employees must also abide by affirmative action requirements. Next slide, please. Once an application is submitted, typically takes the EDA 1 to 2 months to reach an approval notice. After the application is approved, the applicant will have 2 months to provide proof of funding for the expected expected project cost and scope, plus an additional 15% overall project cost contingency. After funding approval and proof of insurance is provided, the applicant and the EDA will execute a grant agreement. The grantee and their contractor will then have a virtual pre-construction meeting with the EDA labor compliance team, and that meeting will review all the labor compliance reporting that must be submitted during the construction process. Construction must commence within 6 months of executing this grant agreement and must be completed within 2 years of construction start date. The applicant can request reimbursement for up to 50% of the grant award during their project construction, once the project has spent 50% of their estimated budget. After that, a second and final reimbursement of the remaining 50% can be requested once the project is completed. Next slide, please. This slide will cover a list of previous NJ-COOL award recipients. I won't be going in detail through each individual building and their scope, but rather this is just to show you that NJ-COOL has already awarded a range of different building types as well as different scopes funding, and each has ranged from the $100,000 floor total project cost all the way up to awards of $1 million. We've compiled a list of very commonly asked questions that we've received, and hopefully this will help improve clarity and give you as a potential applicant a little more information before you go ahead and go through the process. So first, are there any fees associated with the application? Yes, as mentioned, there is a $1,000 non-refundable application fee to apply, and we highly suggest that you submit a pre-application form so we can review your scope and project for eligibility as well as alignment before you go ahead and go and spend the $1,000 that you will not be able to get back through your application. Next, my building is just outside of an OBC or an adjacent community. Can I still apply? The answer is no. This funding is only available to projects within OBCs or the designated adjacent communities, which can be found on the NJDEP EJ Mapper tool. The only exception are the 3 original pilot communities of Newark, Edison, and Atlantic City. Those will also still be eligible for to receive NJ-COOL funding going forward, as well as the OBCs. I want to replace my old system with a combined electric natural gas system. Is this type of project or work eligible? Yes, we do fund those types of projects. However, we will not fund any new natural gas systems. So in this circumstance, any costs associated with a combined system where you have electric cooling, say, and natural gas heating backup, we would reduce the value or the cost of the natural gas component from your total award. And we do understand that there are operational benefits to these combined systems, and we want to ensure that we are funding these projects and they are also clearly providing environmental as well as building benefits. Is there a look back period for work that has already been done? No, our program does not look back at all for funding. We can only approve applications that haven't started their construction yet. And lastly, are residential or multifamily buildings eligible? Typically, no. NJ-COOL does not usually cover cost or funding for any residential or multifamily buildings, but there is an example where we could provide costs, and that is if there are a mixed use case in the building. For example, there is residential as well as commercial property combined together. If in this situation, we would analyze it specifically based on what the scope is and determine, but if it's eligible, but there is a pathway for funding in this multifamily or multi-use case. Next slide, please. Great. Well, that concludes the slides that we have prepared for you today. Hopefully it provided a clear summary and overview of the breadth of the expansion and the eligibility, as well as walk you through the process of what you will need to provide and cover when you're submitting your application. We do have a significant amount of information as well as ancillary documents to provide more context available on our NJ Cool website. It can be found linked here. Or if you have any questions directly for us as a team to review, please feel free to reach out to us at the email address njcool@njeda.gov. And if you're interested in learning more about the EDA clean energy programs, there are some resources for you. We will be hosting a clean energy office hours on the 24th of June. A link for registering to that is available in this webinar here. And we also do have a clean energy newsletter sign up where you can provide your email and you will be updated on any happenings, programs, or project updates with respect to the EDA's clean energy team. And at this point, I think it's a good time we can transition over to any Q&A we received or any live questions that anyone that is attending might have. And I will pass it back over to Sean to review those components.
Great. Thank you, Lloyd, and thank you, Cassie, for walking through that. Apologies all for the brief technical difficulties early on, but as Jasmine said, this recording will be posted and we'll also be posting a copy of the slides as well. So you're welcome to review after the fact and catch up on anything you may have missed. This information is all also on the NJ Cool program website that you can review. So we do have quite a few questions in the chat. I've answered a couple already as we were speaking, and we just had a bunch come in at the end of the presentation. I'll start with the questions that were answered already first, and then we'll go back to the open questions and get those answered. If for any reason we cannot get to your question today, or if we think it just requires a little bit further review, we will answer that and post that to the frequently asked questions section of the NJ Cool website. Again, as Lloyd mentioned, we are happy to discuss and set up some time to meet for any really project-specific questions. So we may, avoid answering those today unless it's relevant for the general audience. But let's dive into the ones we have thus far. Question one is this a competitive grant program? And if a project meets all program requirements, is it guaranteed to receive the grant, or will the project be competing with others for grant funding? Good question. NJ Cool funding is not competitive in the sense that there is no scoring process and projects are not reviewed against each other. However, grant funding is first come, first served as it is available, and completed applications will be reviewed in the order in which they are received. So we do really ask that you submit a fully completed application, as doing a partial application or putting in blank documents is not going to get you reviewed any faster. It's not going to secure your funding. Really only it's fully completed applications that are reviewed and reviewed in, again, the order in which they're received as complete. As we mentioned in our presentation, we do have funding available currently and additional reserve funding available. We also do our best to not have anybody pay an application fee if for some reason funding is oversubscribed. So if you see that we start a waitlist potentially on the program website, that likely will pause the request for an application fee, as we strongly try to avoid that in the area we see programs becoming fully utilized. Second question, is the grant available to replace the entire equipment or system that contains the high GWP refrigerant? Yes. So for projects that are including refrigerant replacement as part of their scope, that can be the refrigerant itself. If for some reason you have a drop-in replacement where your existing system remains and you are just swapping out the refrigerant component, that is eligible, assuming you can meet the minimum project cost and size threshold. We also can, of course, cover an overall new system, which more often than not is required for refrigerant replacement. So that would be both the refrigerant and the overall HVAC system itself. Similar question related to refrigerant display replacement. Can we include additional scope if we're using that pathway of an old gas-fired boiler with a new high-efficiency gas boiler? Short answer is no. As we mentioned in the presentation, the grant funding under NJCOOL cannot be used for any new fossil fuel-based systems. If you are looking to keep your existing system active as a secondary component, you're welcome to do so. If you are even looking to replace it with a high efficiency gas system, again, you're welcome to do so as part of the overall project, but that scope itself would not be able to receive any of the NJCOOL grant funding. We would exclude that on your submitted project cost, and of course exclude that under reimbursement requests. Is a contractor's overhead and profit considered a soft cost? Good question. Short answer is no. We do not require the contractor cost estimate to split out or denote their overhead and profit. We just look at the overall built-in total price and eligible costs. So that is eligible for funding. And again, as a reminder, the grantee is responsible for 50% of those project costs, and all funding flows to the grantee directly. We do not submit payments direct to contractors or any vendors on the project. All of the financial agreement under the program is with the building owner, or if relevant, the building tenant, and they're responsible for any payment to contractors as appropriate. Does the common area in a multifamily building, is that eligible for the NJCOOL program? In general, no, as I mentioned on one of our last slides. The only exception would be a mixed-use building that had both non-residential and residential spaces, and the building owner was undergoing a full building retrofit. So in general, no, there may be some rare exceptions that you might be able to qualify under. For those kind of scenarios, certainly happy to discuss further, and we encourage you to fill out the pre-application form and schedule some time to review in detail with us. Next question. If a prime contractor is Department of Labor Public Works registered, do all subcontractors also need to be Public Works certified? Yes. So as a result of receiving NJCOOL grant funding, all construction work on the project is subject to the same requirements for Public Works contractor registration, affirmative action compliance, and prevailing wage. That's relevant for all contractors, all subcontractors, even if you have some ancillary work that potentially is not receiving direct NJCOOL funding. Those contractors and any construction work would also still be subject to those requirements. That's not a unique requirement for the NJCOOL program. That is really a requirement for, in general, any construction work that's receiving funding from the NJEDA, or in most cases, most other state authorities as well. And again, if you have specific questions on Public Works contractor registration and that process, feel free to reach out and we can connect you with our labor compliance team to speak in detail on that. Okay, quite a few other questions we haven't gotten to yet, so we will work down the list. Does the ERA require certified payroll to be submitted for every project to verify prevailing wage? Yes. So as Lloyd mentioned in reviewing the project timeline and the application timeline, once you work through the application process, and congratulations, you've been approved, we will have a pre-construction meeting with our labor compliance team. In that meeting, they'll walk through all the reporting requirements and documentation for labor compliance and construction reporting, and that does include certified payroll for all the labor on the project. Is there a minimum CO2 reduction requirement for eligibility? Good question. No, there is no minimum. There is no magic number you need to hit on CO2 or energy savings or emissions. Really, the program is designed to focus on scope eligibility, with the either fuel switching or refrigerant replacement, or ideally both. And through that nature, we can work with you through the information we provided and your qualified professional to determine what that avoided value will be. But there is no set minimum or number you need to hit in order to qualify. It's purely based on building, project scope, eligibility, and everything else we've discussed today. If the tenant is a DOL Public Works contractor, can it, with approval from the owner, perform the work itself? It's a good question. In general, we typically do not allow self-perform of the work, and that's mainly because, the grantee is the building owner or tenant and is working with a contractor who is providing the cost estimate. So we really do look for that to be from a separate entity, just for kind of fairness and to avoid any kind of self-dealing there. Would HOAs qualify for electrical upgrades? So if HOA is referring to a residential building, again, typically no. The eligibility and entities are really on the commercial, industrial, and institutional property types and property classes. Residential is not really the intent of the program. Okay, next question. With frequent changes to cost of equipment and material, if cost goes up after approval but not before project completion, would the funding provided for the grant go up as well? Great question. So short answer is no. Your grant amount is locked at time of application approval and grant agreement execution. We do understand that, especially in today's market, there are some volatile changes, potentially with equipment costs, and we understand that is a concern. That's part of the reason why we include a contingency factor in the proof of upfront funding that's provided from the grantee. Really, that's to protect the vendors and contractors working on the project and also ensure that the building owner has those upfront funds and is able to accommodate any changes that may result during the project. So, but funding will not change and not be increased after approval. Okay, questions keep coming in. As I said, we'll get what we can through today and we will follow up with posting any questions that we are not able to answer. How is the grant value calculated? As we've mentioned, the grant value is based on the cost estimate that comes in of eligible expenses, and that is at a 50% basis for eligible expenses. So we will take a look at the cost estimate that you submit as part of your overall project and the scope involved, assuming you meet eligibility for all other requirements and requirements under the program. We will provide you with that 50% value of eligible expenses, and that is your cap on what your grant award will be. Then your actual expenses that you incur during construction will be submitted to us, and you'll be paid out at that 50% rate against that cap that was set during approval. Are public schools eligible for this if one of the qualifying areas? Yes, schools, related entities, public and private, are eligible. We welcome you again to apply, and again, happy to review any specific questions or detailed projects. Can you please clarify the contingency factor? Is that added on top of the contractor's quote? So that is something that you do not need to factor into your cost estimate. That is done after time of approval. Again, we don't look to you to commit that funding until you know you've been awarded. So that is a 15% on top of all eligible expenses under the project, sorry, for all overall project expenses that were submitted, and we will provide you with what that number needs to be for showing proof of funding. Okay, still plenty of questions coming in. Can you go over what is the combined grant and direct install would look like and whether stackable incentives are out there? Cassie, you want to take this one? I think you had a great example during your slides.
Sure, yeah. So if you are stacking with any other utility or state incentive, how it works is, say you have a $1 million project, $1 million of eligible NJ Cool hard construction costs, and say you're also getting a $200,000 PSE&G direct install incentive. What happens is you would submit your NJ Cool application, let us know that you're getting that direct install incentive as well, and we would take that $1 million number and we'd subtract the PSE&G's $200,000 that you're getting for your project. And so now your project would have $800,000 of eligible expenses for NJ Cool. And so then the awarded amount would be 50% of that, so $400,000. I hope that answers the question. And we do accept other incentives. The only incentives that we don't allow is BPU's new construction and gut rehab program, and BPU's, I'm blanking on the other one. Sean, could you?
Large energy users program.
Yes.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yes. So other incentives that could be out there are the prescriptive incentives and other ones that are available through the utilities or the custom incentive programs as well. Again, all of those just will be netted out when we determine your NJ Cool award. We have a detailed example on the FAQs already on their website, so I encourage you to review that as well. Thank you, Captain. Does it cover removing an oil tank? Good question. We would definitely need to see the full scope of the project, but if the oil tank was part of the existing heating system and kind of the decommissioning of that system in its entirety includes removing an oil tank, then that likely would be covered. I don't see why not, but we just would take a look at the full details of the project. Okay, have you funded any other church or other religious organization projects, and what does the additional questionnaire entail? So we have not yet to date under the NJ Cool program. However, the NJEDA has funded religious entities amongst other programs and those similar related entities. The additional questionnaire really goes into detail on how the organization is set up, what the building is being used for, and what, if any other purposes it will be aside from pure religious activities. That questionnaire is available in the application as you complete it, and it has some information about the entity, its bylaws, and as I said, the use of the building space being improved. Unfortunately, I really can't give any predetermination on a yes or no for that. It is very case by case specific, and it is reviewed by our legal team and potentially the Attorney General's office to ensure compatibility with all state laws that are relevant to that. So no blatant restrictions for the NJ Cool program. I will just caveat that there is additional review, and depending on the nature of your project and the building use, you may be denied just on other state laws as relevant, but it really is all case by case specific. Okay, apologies, I know some of these answers we're typing in are just a little short. We're just trying to get through all of these questions and think verbally is more helpful. Would a housing authority qualify for this program? Yes, those likely would be under the institutional entity categories. It would either be under public property, but again, you'd have to really look at the building itself and how that is classified. But there's no restrictions against them if they meet all other program requirements. should contractors document something for the 50% reimbursement after 50% completion? I'm assuming you mean on the cost estimate or project scope. We don't need to see anything like that on the contractor's estimate or cost estimate. That really is for when the building owner is getting, or tenant is getting reimbursed. That really should not impact how the contractor is setting up his or her cost estimate. And again, we do require that the building owner or tenant, whoever the grantee is, have that proof of funding for all project costs plus contingency. So the reimbursement through the NJEDA grant, should not prohibit kind of the building owner or tenant making payments to their contractors as work progresses. As we said, this recording in PowerPoint will be posted on our website. Is a greenhouse with a gas heating system on a tax-exempt property eligible for this program? Interesting. Yeah, no restrictions against greenhouses. So if you meet all the program requirements, you are welcome to apply. Is there any possibility the program is affected by the current administration? What happens after approval of the funding? Good question. There is no federal funding involved with this program. All funding is already available to the state and to the authority. So we do not anticipate any impacts at this time. Is the 15% contingency approved by EDA if the owner agrees to pay a 15 or 20% contingency as part of the contract? So we will look at the bottom line number at the contractor's cost estimate. So I would encourage you not to have additional contingency built into that number, because we will look at the bottom line contingency that you are required to pay the contractor. So we'll try to work with you not to double count contingencies, but really that's an overall number EDA requirement that should be separate from the contractor requirement. When stacking NJEDA with any other programs, how are the energy savings calculated? So you can work through any requirements and reporting that are needed for the other programs. For example, say the direct install program, they do have slightly different reporting requirements than NJEDA. We, as I said, and Lloyd explained during his part of the presentation, there is an SOP and emissions calculations as part of NJEDA. So I would encourage you to do both of those independently. And we are coordinating behind the scenes kind of with the state as any program that is including both funding sources. So I would say complete both, business as usual, and whatever is required from the other programs. If a building recently replaced their HVAC units or has minimum HVAC units, does that limit the eligibility of the ancillary eligible scope? So you do have to complete the 75% threshold for either fuel switching or refrigerant replacement. There is no set requirement for cost relative to that primary scope or the additional supporting work. So I would encourage you to maybe reach out and discuss with us the details of your project, but we do need to see the 75% threshold met through either fuel switching of whatever is fossil fuel based heating systems or refrigerant replacement that is high GWP. And likely, if you are not touching those areas, you won't be eligible, but we'll take a look at your project and happy to discuss further. Just scrolling through here. On one of the slides, energy recovery strategy is listed as an optional work. What exactly do these types of energy recovery strategies entail? We're very flexible on what that can be. Again, really consider that additional supporting work as an open item. So, we've listed a few for reference, but you can come to us with really any work, as Cassie said, that shows an improvement on energy efficiency or reduction in operating emissions. Energy recovery could be direct heat recovery through either the HVAC system. We've seen that as well through sometimes hot water energy recovery systems from the domestic side. Pretty flexible on what that is. Do we have an estimate of when funding may run out, and will the reserve fund be used no matter what? Really, it will depend on application demand. As we've said in the top of the slides, we've awarded to date over 3.3 million of that original 15. The reserve funding won't be officially made available until the full 15 is originally used up. Our goal really is to keep this program going, but that really will depend on sufficient interest from the market. So the more funding we can put to work, the more we can make the case for additional funding in the future. But really, it will depend on program uptake, and as a new program, we really can't provide an estimate for when exactly that will be. What is considered high GWP in this program? So that is 700 plus. And that is, again, for any existing refrigerant being used on site. We require that the replacement be better than existing. Doesn't necessarily have to be below 700, but given the ongoing rollout of new low GWP systems, in most cases, you will be under that 700 threshold. Okay. How does EDA verify CO2 reduction calculations for additional scope beyond path A and B? So yeah, we said there is an SOP and a calculator on the website. We encourage you to review that and reach out with any additional questions after reviewing those materials. Is there any limitations to multiple buildings applying for the grant that are owned by the same entity, or are they treated as individual projects? Good question. Each building is its own project and should require its own application. There is no limit on an entity basis at this time. So if you are a motivated building owner that has several properties and are looking to maximize use of funding for the program, you are welcome to do so at this time. Can the cost of additional work such as lighting exceed the original cost of replacing 75% of the refrigerant? Yes, as we said, there's no set percentages requirements for scope types. Just making sure we hit any of the ones we haven't touched yet here. Do we say if we would pay for a new roof if the rooftop solar PV improved? Only if really it's necessary. So we ask you to explain in your application why the roof itself would have to be touched. And really that's considered an enabling work, as we said. Or if you are replacing the roof and potentially improving, say, the insulation on the roof, and doing overall work as part of that, that could be justified. Again, we just need to see that direct line between either enabling scope or direct energy emissions savings as part of that. That could also be, for example, adding a green roof or similar, more innovative solutions that help with the energy performance of the building. Okay. So I think we've answered some of these already. They've been submitted multiple times. If there's multiple buildings on one property, does each building still need its own application? Good question. I think that we'd prefer you reach out to us and discuss, and we can look at the specifics. It really will depend on the property setup and kind of the entity type, how we handle that. I would say in general, yes, but will depend on the details. So really we encourage you to reach out with the specifics and we can discuss with you. Okay. If the eligible cost spent is $4 million, is it also possible to hit the maximum $1 million grant reimbursed in the middle of the project? Good question. So no, you can only get in that progress payment 50% of your grant award total. So if you were approved for the maximum award, you would only be able to get $500K in that progress payment if you had $1 million total grant. Balance would need to be at project completion. Will wastewater treatment plant upgrades qualify if their admin building meets the qualifying criteria? I would say, let's look at that project specifically. It's likely a unique scenario. Really will be dependent on the refrigerant and fuel switching for the overall building. Potentially we can look at that, but we just would, it sounds like a little more complicated scenario. In general, some of the industrial applications, we'd encourage you really to reach out and review with us just because they're really unique case by case. Okay, and some of these are double questions, so I'm just going to review on that. Is there a minimum percentage for the mixed use building? No, so really it's based on the property class in that scenario. And again, if you are thinking about a mixed use building that has some residential, really would encourage you to discuss with us as it's only unique scenarios where that will be relevant. Do apartment buildings qualify if owned by a nonprofit? Again, it will depend on the property class. It's not clear on funding for soft costs. So no soft costs in general are not eligible for funding. This is a hard cost only. And again, that is the equipment, labor, or other construction materials that are relevant to the energy scope of the project. Okay, we are bumping up against time here, so just taking a quick look at the last few questions. I think we've answered most of them. If not, we will get these in our FAQ on the website. And again, you're welcome to reach out to the NJ Cool email account, and we'll have to get back to you for any project-specific questions. But recognizing, respecting everybody's time, we're going to pause there. And I thank my colleagues Cassie and Lloyd for presenting. I thank you all for joining us. And we're really looking forward to getting more of your projects funded and seeing the environmental benefits and economic benefits for the state. So thank you so much. And thank you, Jasmine, for your help as always in organizing. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.